This story happened around 4 or 5 years ago, as best I can remember. It involves me, my friend Sandun, a mysterious older guy, and two other friends, plus an uncle who witnessed it all. This isn't just a tale, but something real that we all experienced. One day, we set out on a long journey. It was for Sandun's uncle. He needed to visit a sick relative suddenly, so we decided to go along. We didn't have any urgent responsibilities, and the trip sounded like a bit of an adventure. There were four of us altogether, leaving early in the morning. By the time we approached the village, it was already evening. After a tiring journey, we finally arrived at this small, remote village deep in the forest. The houses were sparse, separated by thick trees. Curiosity pulled us forward as we admired the eerie yet beautiful surroundings, heading straight to Sandun's relative's house. A simple, isolated home. The atmosphere around the house was heavy and unsettling, but nothing felt outright wrong yet. Inside, three people were waiting: an older man and two middle-aged women. We were offered tea, which we accepted as we made polite conversation. Soon, Sandun began preparing for the purpose of our visit. We went with him to a dimly lit room where an old woman lay trembling, whispering strange things about shadows and fear. Sandun lit an oil lamp, made a small floral offering, and began a gentle ritual to calm her down, rubbing oil on her forehead. While Sandun worked, Randika, Sajanu and I decided to step outside to give him space. We wandered around chatting and took in the darkening surroundings. The area had a strange charm, but the dense forest seemed to watch us. After an hour and a half, Sandun was done, and by then it was getting quite dark. With no transportation to take us back to town and night already falling, Sandun suggested we stay overnight. There was an old abandoned house nearby that we could use. It seemed like the best option, so we gathered our things and made our way there. The path was pitch black. We walked carefully, relying on our phone flashlights, and the occasional bark of dogs and screech of bats echoed through the stillness. After 15 or 20 minutes, we arrived at the abandoned house, a big, old, run-down building. It looked like it hadn't been lived in for years, covered in moss and decay. "This place is like a haunted graveyard, man," Sajani whispered, holding my arm tightly. Despite our unease, Sandun managed to pry open the door, and we all went inside. Dust and cobwebs hung thick in the air. The interior wasn't as dreadful as I'd expected. Just old and worn out, with broken furniture and shattered glass scattered about. We decided to clean up a small corner to rest. As we settled, we set up our mats and prepared a meal, using the food Sandun's family had packed for us. Halfway through eating, a foul stench suddenly filled the air, something rotten and decaying. Sajanu dropped his plate, gagging. "The food's gone bad," he exclaimed. Sandun took a closer look, confirming that it was spoiled. "How could it go bad so quickly?" I wondered aloud, confused, but there was no point in questioning it. We decided to dispose of the food outside. Sajanu, Randika, and I went out to the well behind the house to wash our hands. The well, half hidden by the shadows, looked ancient and unused, overgrown with weeds. We peered down into the dark water, shining the light. The water was surprisingly clear, though something about it felt wrong. After washing up, we returned inside. A strange itch began to crawl over my arms and legs. I noticed Sajanu scratching too. "Hey, are you guys feeling itchy too?" Randika asked. We all were. The itching intensified, and despite scratching ourselves raw, the discomfort wouldn't go away. Must be something in that well water, Randika said nervously. Sandun handed us a bottle of oil he had used earlier during the ritual. Applying it seemed to reduce the itching, but red welts started appearing on our skin where we had scratched. Hours passed as we tried to make light of the situation, but an uneasy silence settled over us. We were all too on edge to sleep, so we sat around talking in low whispers. Suddenly, Sajanu whispered, "I need to go outside." Reluctantly, I got up to accompany him. We stepped a few paces away from the house when something caught my eye. The well. I froze. There, at the edge, a dark silhouette was sitting, legs dangling into the void. My heart pounded as I realized the figure was staring straight at us, unmoving. I nudged Sajanu and pointed. "Look, do you see that?" I stammered. Sajanu's eyes widened. Who is that?" he whispered, panic rising in his voice. "Let's go back inside," I said, my voice shaking. "No, wait, let's get a closer look," he replied, his curiosity overriding his fear. But as we took a hesitant step forward, a deafening splash echoed through the air. The figure had vanished, pulled down into the well with a force that left the water violently churning. We bolted back inside, hearts racing, and slammed the door behind us. The others, now wide awake, demanded to know what happened. Trembling, we described the encounter. Everyone was on edge. The fear almost suffocating. Hours dragged by. We huddled together, not daring to move, when faint footsteps echoed outside the main door, growing louder, closer. They stopped, followed by a sudden silence that hung thick in the air. Then, from the direction of the well, came the sound of splashing. Faint at first, then growing louder. The water was churning again. Sandun quickly took out the bottle of oil and anointed us, saying prayers under his breath. The splashing stopped. We were too afraid to sleep, remaining tense and alert until dawn finally broke. At daylight, the terror seemed to dissipate. We checked the well. Nothing was there. Exhausted and still shaking, we packed up our things and made our way back to Sandun's uncle's house. Just as we were about to leave, the elderly man approached us. "Did you sleep well last night?" he asked with a strange smile. "Why do you ask?" Sandun replied, his voice wary.